Welcome to Parenting Special Needs Live. I'm Shantae, and today I'm super excited because we're going to be speaking with Robyn Steward. We're going to be talking about self-employment, and it doesn't have to be scary. So Robyn is here with us. She's the author of the new book, The Autism-Friendly Guide to Self-Employment. Robyn herself is autistic. She has worked in the autism field for over 15 years. She's written 3 books, and she co-hosts a BBC podcast called 1800 Seconds on Autism. So welcome, Robyn. I'm excited to have you with us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I wanted to start out by talking about, because I think this is something, as a parent, most parents are kind of, I'll speak for myself, afraid of thinking about self-employment for their children. So can you share with us, you said self-employment doesn't have to be scary. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I think if you've always like been in typical employment all your life, like as a parent, or maybe you've been at home, but the people close to you have been in typical employment. Self-employment can seem like really scary, like it's the unknown and there's a lot of responsibility. But it doesn't have to be like that. Self-employment can look a lot of different ways. And certainly for those of you that have school-age kids, self-employment can be a way of associating monetary value with different things. And so like when I was growing up, my parents used to like pay me a couple, well, in the US it would be like $4 for cleaning the sort of upholstered holes in the sofa. And then I'd get like $2 for, some vacuuming or something. But I made the link between I do something that isn't particularly pleasant and then I get some money for it.
Right.
It wasn't that bad. I didn't totally hate it. Just wasn't, it wasn't particularly fun, but, it earned money. And then I remember that when I was 13, I really wanted a job, because when you're 13 in the UK, you can get your first part-time job. And I just couldn't get one. And then when I was 16, my dad kind of suggested I start my own business. I'd been helping him at computer fairs. And so while I was in college, so in the UK, when you're 16 years old, you finish high school and then you choose what you want to do next. So you can do something more vocational, which is, I guess, a bit like a community college. Or you can do A-levels, which is kind of the route you'd take if you were going to go to university. So it just kind of depends on what you want to do. And the route I chose was more vocational. I actually got kicked out of school. And my special interest was computers. So my dad was doing computer fairs. Luckily, we had the same interest. And I was helping him and other store holders at computer fairs. And then I started my own business when I was in college, where I was like selling computer mice and webcams and things like that.
Wow.
So like it wasn't massively profitable. I wasn't like one of those 16-year-old multimillionaires or anything. I probably made like $100. like it really wasn't really it yeah it was a thing for a few months, but it gave me the opportunity to try, like the different techniques I'd learnt from being at the computer fairs. So self-employment can look like that. Like it can be something where you've got some skills in something, and then you're like using those skills to earn money. Another example of that is a gentleman called Clay, and he's from Australia. He's from Brisbane, I think, and he cleans bins. So I'm sure it's not his his special interest. I think is computers and gaming, and he uses the money he earns to pursue his interest. But after school and in school holidays and at weekends and things, he goes around to people's houses and he cleans their bins, and then they pay him. And his mom drops him there, and she has one of those little card machines. So you can easily take card payments now with a little card machine that connects to your mobile. There's companies like SumUp, iZettle, PayPal here. There's various ones.
Right.
So she has one of those, and she just takes it out with her, and then the customer pays with their card. So definitely self-employment doesn't have to be, right, I'm going to earn £1 million and I'm going to buy a house and I'm going to, like, it's just going to be my main thing. It can definitely be something that, when you're 16 or 17, that you start to explore as a way of earning a little bit of extra money or to be able to pursue a special interest. But self-employment obviously can also be your main source of income. So like I've always been self-employed, and yeah, you might need federal or state assistance, but lots of people do.
Right.
I mean, that's why SSI, etc. exists. But within the USA, welfare system, there are some things that can help you. So there's a thing called a PASS plan, PASS, and stands for prop. Oh, and there's two. There's PASS and PESS, PESS. PESS stands for Property Essential to Self-Support. PASS, I think, stands for Plan for. I can't remember. But anyway, you can look them up. But
But that's in the US.
That's in the US, yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard that. Okay.
So in the US, there's a network of, they're called pass cards or CARDES, CARDE, and it's a national network. So it's a thing, and basically it's a plan that's maybe 2 or 3 years long, and the idea is that it means that money and resources that you're using to achieve that vocational goal don't get counted by Social Security when they're working out your SSI entitlement.
Wow.
Some states also have ABLE accounts, which is a special bank account, which is only for spending on specific things like education or other things. But that money in that account is also not counted by Social Security. That's
Right.
like these things are like federal level things. I think the ABLE accounts might be statewide, but so there are things that you can use to get yourself going or help your child to get going. It doesn't have to be like, okay, well, rather than get a job, I'm gonna just be self-employed. You can also be self-employed part-time. A lot of people do that, and that's how a lot of people start their businesses that way. There's a book called 100 Side Hustles. Like that's a great example of 100 different people that have got a side hustle, essentially a main job, and then a thing they do at weekends or in the evenings. And again, that could be based on a special interest. So I think that, yeah, self-employment, like it you don't have to just see it as a job. I think also for me, like having been self-employed, yeah, I mean, I have had the odd times in employment. It's never really worked out for me, but I've been self-employed for quite a long time now. And in a way, when I compare myself to my employed friends, I feel like I've got more stability. I can kind of see ahead what's going to happen. I mean, obviously, COVID messed things up, but there were things put in place for self-employed people here in the UK, and I know there was some financial aid for people in the US, but also in the US, there's like there's small business development centres, SBCD, and that's a nationwide network in the US of centres that will help people to develop business ideas, and they may have specific funding. Yet there's also, if you're in a state that has a vocational rehabilitation centre, and particularly in California, they have a really good network. They might know people. There's also the women's business development centres, and sometimes there's resources for specific groups. So particular sort of ethnic minorities and that kind of thing. So there is funding out there, and it's just finding it and getting connected. But probably your small business development centre would probably be a good place to start.
Now, I have not read your entire book. Is some of that information in your book?
Yes, it's in my
Okay.
book, yeah.
I want to, since you mentioned about the, some advantages, can you share 3 advantages of being, being self-employed? I know you started to mention a few, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to finish my point. So about,
Okay.
so with my employed friends, like some of them have, like come to the end of their contract, or like they've found themselves unemployed, and it's been really hard for them to get another job, and they're like, in a way, there's that phrase, putting your eggs all in one basket. So they're just trying to find one job that's gonna like pay their mortgage and whatever. Whereas as a self-employed person, I feel like my eggs are in lots of baskets because I can get lots of different kinds of work. So yeah, I think that's that's a good thing. So in a way, actually, that's probably an advantage, is that not all your eggs are in one single basket. So you have lots of different ways of earning money, and it's in the book I talk about revenue streams. It's just about creating revenue streams. And again, I'm really not talking about someone that's making millions and millions. This book is aimed at your everyday person who who just wants to pay their rent and feed themselves and their kids. It's not that I'm not interested in earning millions or trillions or the next sensation or anything. Just it's for the people that are just like getting by. And I think there's a lot of self-employed people. When you look around you, I think that's another good exercise, is looking around you and seeing the self-employed people. So looking in the phone directory, or doing doing a search on Google for businesses near me, and seeing like how many people there are. Then they don't always have a shop front. It might be the person that is mowing your neighbour's lawn, or the person that did some brickwork for someone down the street. There's a lot of people who are self-employed, and initially you might think of just people like Mark Zuckerberg or whoever, but there's a lot more very small businesses out there than there are big ones, I would say. So that's the first advantage, is you don't have all your eggs in one basket. Second advantage, metaphorical eggs, obviously. Eggs representing money and stability. I think the second advantage is being able to do things that you're interested in. That definitely, being self-employed, you do have to do some boring stuff like bookkeeping and various other things like that, but you do get to do some really fun stuff, and I suppose it's like what you want to do in your life. Like, I love being able to do lots of different things, and being self-employed allows me to do that. Excuse me, sorry. And I think the third thing is the flexibility. So if you've got kids or other commitments, or you want to do a night course, or you're the boss, you don't have to ask anyone, you can just like get on with it, and I think that that's a big advantage.
That's great. And I was going to ask too, you mentioned a lot of people in your book that have their own businesses. Did you help any of them, or did you get to discuss any challenges with them about having a business or being self-employed?
Yeah, so whenever I do a project, I always start by doing a survey of 100 autistic people and ask them about their experiences of it. Because whenever I do like a book or something like that, like, it's to benefit the community. It's not about me. It doesn't matter what I know or think is important, really. It matters what the community wants, because that's what I do. I do things for the community. So I did connect with lots of people that run businesses who are also autistic, and yeah, people definitely talked about challenges, and they ranged. When you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. So for some people it was the social stuff. For other people it was sort of figuring out how to navigate, as a small business owner. So it was quite varied. Sometimes it was getting people to take them seriously. But what I would say about all the people in the book is that they're successful businesses that are trading, and I've met those people and I've seen what they do. And that is, I think that's a really important thing. Like, yeah, there are challenges, but there's also challenges when you have traditional employment. And I think also, when you're self-employed, if you're paying other people to support you, you choose who those people are, and then you're involved with the whole recruitment process. And when you're employed, a lot of autistic people, they need the relationship, the one-to-one with their line manager or whoever. But then when that manager goes, or if the next person doesn't have a good attitude towards autism, or they get a new person in the team that's a bit of a bully or whatever, then you're kind of stuck. And the nice thing about self-employment is, if there's a client I can't work with, if there's a lot of money at stake, I can pay somebody else to be the go-between. Because sometimes it's not, these things are not necessarily malicious, but sometimes it's just that they have a lot of paperwork and a lot of form filling, and it has to be done in a very specific way, and I really struggle with that. But I can pay someone to just help me to do that, because the actual work, the training work, I can do that, no problem, and I get great feedback, and they're very happy, and they're not really interested in who fills out the form. They're interested in who delivers the training and that it meets their objectives and it's high
Right.
quality training. So I think that yeah, definitely people experience challenges, but I think people experience challenges in employment, and the advantage of being self-employed is you can have support within it.
Right. Well, and I also want to mention too, because I know that your book is autism, self-employment, a friendly guide for autism, but we serve, special needs community. So, but I feel strongly that your book would support others as well who are
Yeah,
looking into
definitely.
self-employment. And that's kind of why I wanted to make sure we promoted it, because I think that it does kind of, it goes across all the disabilities that would help people. And kind of also I'm thinking, I'm sure, well, I should ask this question, like, what was your why did you write the book?
Well, I wrote the book because a couple of years ago I had lunch with a friend who I think has some traits of being on the spectrum, but doesn't have a diagnosis, doesn't identify that way. And he'd just become self-employed, and he was talking to me about it. And I could, in my head, I could see the pitfalls that he was falling into, and I was like, oh, I don't want to tell you what to do, like, but I want to. I can see that like I've learned a lot along the way, and I want to pass that knowledge on. But also that the statistics for the amount of autistic people that are in employment is amazingly low, and I wanted to try and do something to change that. And there was only like one book that was written by an autistic person for autistic people, and that was about self-employment, and that was more about like entrepreneurship, i.e., like having a company and employees and earning loads of money, or turning over loads of money, having money come in and out of the business. And I just think that's great, but I mean, I'm not a career business person. I mean, I'm self-employed out of necessity because it's a way of having the best quality of life and being able to do lots of different things. But I'm not like a business expert or anything like that, and I'm certainly not trying to be, and I'm not trying to like grow to the point where I, you know, have the burden of an office, and then having an employees, and and all that stuff, all the legalities
Right.
and things. And I just thought, well, there must be loads of people like me who quite happy being a sole trader or sole proprietor in the US, so just one person, or like a really small business, like 5 people or something, or paying freelancers. They don't count as employees, but you still, you pay them, but you only work with them for a particular project or whatever. And I just thought there must be a lot of other people out there, and there's a lot of stuff I've learned, but also I felt like, so you raised an important point about like it is a good book for the special needs community in general, because when I say autism friendly, it's really because I just got to have autism in the title, so that it gets on the autism list and it gets.
Yes.
But it's more like when I say autism friendly, really that just means it's friendly for people that like concise information, visual information,
Right.
things broken down into small chunks. So that covers quite a lot of people with
Right.
dyslexia, ADHD.
Right. That's why I think it was serve everyone. And that's what I think is great about it. Now, what about now? Because some of the stuff that you go into, like revenue and that kind of stuff, might be a little bit more complicated. So how would you recommend like a parent work with their or support their child that wants to be a self I just
Employed.
yes, gosh, I was thinking self-entrepreneur, but I'm thinking, oh wait, you didn't want me to say that.
I
Self
mean, you can say that.
self-employed.
Yeah. Well, so I think when you start out, I don't think you have to worry too much about, like revenue streams and stuff like that. I think also that, like, I see the book as just being part of like a person's toolkit for becoming self-employed. So, like on very near the beginning, I think it's page 53 or 57, there's a list of in-person help organisations. I think it's section 3.5. um, and my thought with that is, and I say at the beginning of the book, like, don't see this book as the be-all and end-all, because a lot of those organisations that offer in-person support, and when I say in-person, I mean it could be like over Zoom or over the phone or over email, but just what I mean is personalised to you, not just a static website, like a way of conversing with other people in some way. Um, and so lots of those organisations do offer courses for people to start out in business, um, and that's probably, down the line that would probably be a good thing to go on to. If you do have a child who like needs a lot of support, you might look at supported self-employment, which is more like, so there's been I met this guy during the research of the book called Carrie Griffin, and Carrie is like one of the key people for supported employment. I don't go into great details about it in the book, but it would be something worth having a look at his there's like videos of him talking on YouTube and that kind of thing. And so I think you can start out and just be like, right, okay, well, there's a checklist of stuff that you have to do to run a business. So long as you meet that checklist, like, you can worry about those other things later. Like, obviously, you have to do your legal obligations, but then, like revenue streams and stuff like that, you can worry about them a bit later. Because I also think that some of that stuff happens naturally. That, if you're cleaning bins, well, maybe someone will ask you, hey, could you clean my car? Well, there's another revenue stream right then. So I don't think you necessarily have to intellectualize it. I think as a parent, it might be helpful to read through it, and then maybe you can make suggestions if your child is open to your suggestions. But I think you don't have to worry too much about the complexities. You just have to know what your legal obligations are, make sure you're doing those, and that you're registered and everything. And then the other stuff can come later.
How would you know, like, if you're what would a parent look for? Because we're parenting special needs. So what would a parent look for, like, to kind of help their child go into self-employment? Like, are there do they look at certain things that they're interested in, and, like, do they have to kind of brainstorm ideas? Like, how would they think that this would be an opportunity for their child?
I mean, I think it's having a conversation with their child about like what self-employment is, and that could be on a really basic level. You don't necessarily have to say self-employment, it can just be about earning money. um yeah, you could sit down with your child and do some brainstorming of ideas, because they may well have their own ideas once they've understood the concept of that they can do something and be paid for it.
Yeah,
And it
I
might be
like that.
that, yeah, exactly. It's like, because it's like a feedback loop, isn't it? You do something, you get paid. Oh, this is
Yeah.
great. So there's a little cartoon in the book about Jim and Jim's dad. And Jim's dad lends Jim £10 or $10, and Jim goes to an art store and he makes 20 greeting cards, and he sells each card for £1 or $1. And he makes 20 greeting cards. He sells 10 of them. No, he sells 20 of them. Sorry, he sells all of them. So then he's got $20. He pays his dad back $10. Then he goes to the art store and buys some more materials. He makes 20 more cards, and then he's grown his business from $0, to a profit of $10, by selling that next lot of greeting cards. So that's, once you understand that idea of that, you can be in charge of this and you can do a good job, and then people will want you to work again. And it could be like babysitting or mowing the lawn, or but like finding an activity that they'd be happy to do. And also, like, there's certain activities that you can do that, you could also be listening to a podcast or music, or something like that. So it doesn't necessarily, like, if you're mowing someone's lawn, you could, I don't think anyone would think it's rude if you've got a pair of headphones on and you're listening to music. And they could be noise cancelling headphones if the lawnmower is too loud. Or it could be like doing deliveries, and that could be like working for an agent like Uber Eats or something like that. Or it could be, just like doing it, just on your own. There's an organisation called Anthony at Your Service, and Anthony is a young man who's autistic, and he, with his support worker, he goes out and does deliveries, and they expanded that. So he's based in Edmonton in Alberta in Canada, and they expanded that to you know, people who have similar disabilities to Anthony in like Calgary and other places, and they developed an app so that all of the jobs could be managed and allocated correctly. So he's not doing it totally on his own, and certainly his mum is really spearheading the business, if you like. But it's based around what Anthony likes to do, which is he likes to be around people. He doesn't like to stay in one place for too long. He likes to come and go. So, so you could look at what the person likes. Or it could just be like what fits the person's personality, and it might also be trying a few different things. So I met somebody else called Alex. I think his business is called Alex at Your Service. It's in the book, and his mum Ellen, you know, got him to try lots of different kinds of work, but you know, they wanted him to have something that he would really love doing and enjoy doing. And one thing he likes doing is shopping, and so he built up a business around that. And obviously then COVID changed things. But I think, you know, if your child like understands the concept of they do something then they get money, and that's a good thing, they can spend it on their special interest, then you could sit down and think about like what jobs would be okay to do, like, you know, repetitively, but also to do them really well. So for example, like I don't do a lot of babysitting. I wouldn't say it's my favourite job, and I certainly wouldn't really see it as a self-employment activity, although obviously I'd declare it as earnings. But, you know, I could do that. And, you know, sort of I would babysit children from like 3 up. And I did do that for a family that lived locally to me, just to help them out. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I was the most confident babysitter on the planet, but I was pretty efficient, and the kids loved me, which yeah was really nice. But if you're somebody who finds, you know, kids crying and like having to negotiate and stuff like that, if that's difficult for you, then maybe babysitting might not be the right job for you, unless they're really small babies, and then maybe that's a bit easier. I don't know. I've never babysat a small baby, but isn't babysitting a weird one? Because you're not going to sit on anyone, like, because obviously you wouldn't do that because you're there to look after them. So that's kind of like,
Sometimes you want to sit on them, though.
you know, I never really felt like that. I always really enjoyed helping the kids out, because I knew that, you know, ultimately I was helping them to feel safe and secure by, you know,
That's awesome.
following the boundaries that have been set by the parents. And but also I like the fact that because I was just like babysitting rather than nannying, I didn't really have to make any decisions. Like, it's like, here's the kids' food, so it's all like, you know, that's how much they're going to eat. All right, let's eat dinner.
Oh, yeah, well, you sound like you're probably a very good babysitter then. That's awesome. You follow the rules and work with the kids, and
Yeah, exactly. And but I love all that because I know from having babysitters as a kid that you know, if your babysitter is friendly, but like they stick to the rules, and the rules are clear, and you explain the rules and why you're doing something or not doing something, or why something's not allowed, the kids respond well to that. And the little lad, when he was 3, I'd read him a bedtime story and tucked him in bed and everything, and I stood at the top of the stairs, and he went, "Love you, Robyn."
oh, that's
And that
awesome.
was like, oh, that was
Yeah,
just so
that made it
lovely.
worthwhile, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, that's so.
Oh,
But
perfect.
I think for me, I felt like, because sometimes I felt like, you know, oh, you know, I'm not sure I agree with this rule necessarily, but like this rule's here, and I'm sticking to it because I'm not a parent. So,
Right.
um, and but yeah, so like if babysitting is not something that you feel comfortable doing, or your child would feel comfortable doing, then that's all right. There's lots of other things, but I think when you're going through that brainstorming phase, it's like finding things that they feel like because I knew that family, I felt comfortable babysitting for them, but I don't think I'd feel comfortable babysitting for a family I didn't know, because I wouldn't
Right.
know them. And I certainly fed children that were still in diapers. I have no idea how to change a diaper, but I have cerebral palsy. I think I'd really struggle with that. I can see that creating massive messes that I would then have to clear up, and I think I might struggle. But yeah, you know, so I think it's just like finding what you know, what your child feels comfortable with, and also what there's a market for locally.
Right. And what they're interested in and what there might be a market for
Yeah.
locally. Yeah, I think those are great points. So, well, where can people find your book?
Yeah, so in the US, you can go to your local Barnes and Noble or any bookshop really. Will be able to order it in, or your local library. In Canada, there's some chapters should have it in. You can obviously order from Amazon, and also from Jessica Kingsley Publishers' website directly, which is jkp.com.
And where will you be? And what do you have another project? Do you have stuff you're working on right now?
Yeah, so I'm working on a series of concerts or gigs, I suppose, at Cafe Oto, which is in East London, which are being streamed. So that's the thing I do. Yeah, I'm starting another book. My first book, The Independent Woman's Handbook for Super Safe Living on the Autistic Spectrum. It's such a long title. I want to try and like do a second edition of that that's maybe a little bit neater and more concise, and I know a lot more about like how I want my books to be laid out and images and that kind of thing. Um, Doing training for organisations, so working with organisations and parent groups and things to deliver autism training both online and in person. Doing gigs with bands. Yeah, I mean, I'm
You
always
play
busy.
what instrument do you play?
I play the trumpet.
Play the trumpet. Wow, that's awesome. All right, my husband is a bass player, so
Oh,
that's interesting. So, anyways, well, listen, I can't thank you enough for sharing with us. I think that it would be great for parents to pick up a copy of your book, or anybody that's interested in, self employment, and to kind of see, and then, discuss it with a child, because you're right, it is an option. And I think you break down some of the stuff of the way people could run it, so that would be helpful to them to not make it scary, right?
great,
To
thank you.
run self-employment. I thank you for being with us, and I thank all of you for tuning in and listening today. And in case no one has told you today, you are doing a great job. Be good to you, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Ah.